My name is Abby McAllister, and I'm an education and outreach specialist for Region 1, so that's Southeast Alaska. And it's my job to just help coordinate events like this, help educate the public on things that are important, whether it's wildlife safety, hunting safety, and also to provide support to all the area offices. So, you know, Juneau, Douglas, Petersburg, Sitka, Haines, and all the others. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass off the introduction to Frank. Frank, I'll let you go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and then we'll go down the line. Like I said, I'm here with Frank Robbins, who's the area biologist in Petersburg, and then also we have Koch, and we also have Roy Churchwell. So go ahead, Frank.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I'm Frank Robbins. I'm the area biologist for Unit 3 and 1B, the Petersburg area biologist. I've been here 1 year. Prior to Petersburg, I was the Unit 13, Unit 11 area biologist in South Central Alaska for about close to 10 years. Of course, we primarily manage for black-tailed deer, moose, black bear, mountain goat, and our registration moose hunt is RM038. And last year we got a record harvest of about 127 bull moose. So happy to be here. Happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Carl, whenever you're ready.
Okay, yeah, I'm Carl Koch. I'm the assistant area biologist for working out of the Juneau office, or the Douglas office rather, and the primary hunt manager for Unit 1D. So the Haines Moose Hunt, I'm your guy. I probably know quite a few of you folks already. I've been managing the Haines Moose Hunt and hunting in the Haines area, Haines-Skagway area since January of 2015. Before that, I came up through the ranks as a wildlife technician. And just want to say, really good job. I think we did 2 years in a row now with no sublegal moose by the Haines hunters. So way to go, guys.
All right, I'll go next. My name is Roy Churchwell. I'm the area biologist in Douglas, and back Carl up in 1D, but also cover all of the 1C area and Unit 5 as well. And I'll give a big portion of this presentation today. So we're going to talk about units, the RM038 hunt, the RM049 hunt, and the TM059 hunt. So the goals of this meeting are to provide hunters with a review of the antler restriction criteria, and then we'll also discuss the different antler morphologies and what makes a moose legal under our antler restriction strategies. And hopefully this information that we present will result in a few and maybe none non-legal moose harvested in this upcoming hunting season, or at least that's our goal. And so then what we're gonna, I'll go briefly through what we're gonna talk about tonight, the agenda. And so we're gonna start with why we have a selective harvest strategy. From there, we'll move into what is a legal moose and some definitions. So what's a spike fork, what's 50-inch spread, 3 brow tines, and then in RM038, the 2x2 brow tines is also a legal moose. After that, we'll go through many slides of different antler configurations from hunters from the past, from all 3 areas. I picked pictures from all 3 hunts. And on top of that, we'll talk about the permit hunt requirements. So what's required of you when you hunt in these hunts. In the last part, we'll go through some different resources. Most importantly, is this moose legal video and where you can find that on the internet, and as well as some other videos that we've put together. So as I mentioned, this is going to cover the RMO38 hunt, which is Unit 1B as well as Unit 3, and then the very, very southern portion of Unit 1C in Hobart Bay. And then the RMO49, which is that region just right around the city of Gustavus. And TMO59, which is Unit 1D, which is Haines and Skagway for the most part, and the Chilkat Valley. So I want to go over a little bit why we have antler restricted hunts. And most of this started from a concern of overharvest as well as public safety with too many hunters working in a small area. And overall, before we had these restricted hunts, the hunt quality was thought to be pretty low because there were so many people hunting in a small area, and the hunts would only last for really short periods of time. I think there was a hunt in Gustavus that lasted half a day once. And so most hunters do like to spend a little time out in the woods, and that was our goal, to kind of extend the hunt period as well as make a better experience for hunters out there. So as I mentioned, these small populations, especially in Gustavus, and at one time, even the 1B moose population was quite small, although it's grown quite a bit since then. And the Haines population all were a little bit smaller at one time. So they are vulnerable to overharvest, and so we want to keep that from happening. And we also can find that there can be large numbers of people hunting in these really small areas. On top of that, as I mentioned, we found that the hunt duration declined as hunter participation increased. And so things got pretty crowded in some of these hunts for a period of time. But a lot of this restricted hunt strategy has cleared up a bunch of these problems and made for a more enjoyable hunt for folks. And so the goal of these hunts is to protect the middle-aged bulls from harvest. And this provides an insurance that there's going to be breeding males available, as well as an improved bull to cow ratio. So there should be a decent number of bulls per cow. And so you don't have that risk of having some cows not being bred. With the restricted spike fork and 2x2 or 3x or 3 brow tines are 50 inches. This allows folks to hunt yearling bulls that are 1 or 2 years old, as well as mature bulls, and most of those are 4+ years old when they get to be of antler size that they're harvestable. As I've mentioned a few times, the hunt quality increases, and also their public safety issues decrease with fewer hunters crowded into a smaller area. And this says the current RMO38 hunt structure, but that should actually read all 3 of the different hunts. So I'll go through each of those. And so the hunt areas for those in RMO38, that's the Unit 1B, as I mentioned, as well as Unit 3 and the very southern portion of Unit 1C, including the Point Hooten drainages. And the RMO49 is that portion of Unit 1C that's west of Excursion Inlet and north of Icy Passage, also known as the Gustavus area. And then TMO59 is the Unit 1D in whole. Abby, you got a comment?
No, I just wanted to let you know we have some stragglers coming into the meeting, and I wanted to let them in.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed happens is I accidentally advance a slide. So
Yeah,
if that happens, I'm going to pop it back real quick just to let people in if you want me to.
Yeah, no, that's great. And
Okay, that's what I just wanted to let you know. It's happened a couple times and I haven't done it, so.
And I've been
No,
trying
go
to let
ahead.
them in for you as well, Abby.
Oh, maybe you have been. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks everyone for your patience. It's a little new to us as well. We haven't done a lot of these presentations via Zoom, so working our way around it. All right, thanks, Roy.
Yeah, no problem. Season dates for RMO38 and RMO49 are September 15th through October 15th. And then TM059 is a little bit different. The start date is the same on September 15th, but it ends on October 7th. Bag limits are 1 bull. It can be a spike fork antlers, 50 inches antlers, 3 or more brow tines, and then on at least one side. And then in RMO38, you can also have 2x2 brow tines, so 2 on both sides. Another regulation that is unique to RMO38 is that a damaged or broken antler is not considered a spike fork antler or a 2x2. So you can't have a broken antler that makes it or breaks it for your antler to be legal. Now we're going to go over a little bit of terminology and definitions so that you have kind of our legal definitions that are in our regulation book at hand, so you know what we use to determine the legality of these different antler configurations. And one of the most important is the definition of a brow tine. And this means a tine emerging from the first branch or brow palm on the main beam of a moose antler. So the brow palm is separated from the main palm by a wide bay, and a tine originating in or after this bay is not considered a brow tine. And so on the real moose antler, you can see in the picture that has a brow palm with 3 brow tines. And when I usually look at a moose antler, I start at the base and go out the beam, and then look at the first tine. So that's the first tine of the brow palm, and then the second and third. And then you have that wide bay that separates the brow palm from the main palm. And then you get the first tine of the main palm after that, which would be tine number 4. And here's kind of, it's the same picture of the moose antler, but a different picture from our regulations. And once again, that brow tine means a tine emerging from the first branch or brow palm on the main beam of a moose antler. And so just kind of want to go over that again. This drawing picture has a good example of what we call a mid-bay tine. That's a tine that comes out through the mid-bay itself and is not considered one of the brow tines there. So something to keep in mind. And we'll have some real-time pictures of that coming up in our slides. And definitions of spikes and forks. So a spike means antlers on a bull moose with only 1 tine on at least one side. And you should also remember that male calves, so moose that were born this year, are not considered spike bulls, even though they might have a little nubbing of antlers sticking up there. And then a fork means antlers of a bull moose with only 2 tines on at least 1 antler. And so either of those cases will make those moose legal for harvest. We should also talk about the definition of a point. So a point or tine is an antler projection at least 1 inch long and longer than it is wide, with the width measured 1 inch or more from the tip. An antler point or tine originating within 2 inches from the base and less than 3 inches in length will not be considered as a brow tine or point. And I have some more pictures of that. That was a new regulation that was developed to help hunters with small tines that came off of near the base that were often difficult for hunters to see. And we have some more pictures for you to see of that. Then once again, the regulation specific to RMO 38, that registration hunt, where if the antlers must be salvaged, they may not be altered prior to completion of all salvage requirements. A damaged, broken, or altered antler is not considered a spike fork antler in Units 1B, which is that portion of 1C south of Point Hobart, including all of Port Houghton, drainages, and Unit 3. And so I was talking about the small point that may come off at the base. This is, I don't know, we call it a newer regulation, although it's been around long enough that it's not getting to be new as new any longer. But it's an antler point or tine originating within 2 inches of the base, or it's also called a burr point. And it's less than 3 inches in length, and so it will not be counted as a point. And so if you do observe one of these points, you want to ask yourself if it's less than 2 inches from the base, and once again, is it 3 inches long or shorter? Something to consider is if you don't know for sure, you may not want to shoot the animal just to be on the safe side. And so here's an example of that. You can see in the red circle, there's a small burr point off the base there. It's within 2 inches of the base and it's less than 3 inches long. Because we don't count that point, this moose would be a legal moose as a fork on that side. And here's another example, a similar situation where you have a burr point within 2 inches of the base and it's less than 3 inches long, making that side a fork side as well, and a legal moose. So antler configurations to look for. And so 4 ways for a bull to be legal are it can have a spike antler, which is 1 point only on one side, on at least one side. A fork antler, which is 2 points only, on at least one side. It can have 3 brow tines or points on one brow palm, or in RMO 38, it can have 2 by 2 brow tines or points on both brow palms. And finally, if your total antler width is 50 inches or greater, that would also be legal. But once again, if there's any question, we just are totally encouraging folks to let that bull walk away because it's just not worth taking a sublegal bull. And so some rules of thumb and some things to think about when assessing antlers. I usually group moose into whether their antlers are small or their antlers are medium to large. And so if you're talking about a small antlered bull, you're going to look and see if it is a spike or a fork. And so I did see the comment about 50 inches. And I think right before we get to the pictures, maybe I'll address that at that point. And we can talk a little bit about how to measure a 50-inch bull. Then I also look and see if the antlers are medium to large. So a medium to large size bull. And in that case, you need to break it down as either having 3 brow tines on at least one side, or that RMO 38 regulation, it can be a 2x2 brow tine bull. The other option is that the antlers are 50 inches or wider across. And as another reminder, if you aren't sure, you should let that bull walk. Okay, so let me just see if I can back up. So let's talk a little bit about 50 inches and how to measure that. The best example, and one I suggest you all look at, is in the Is This Moose Legal video. They tell and show a lot of pictures of how to do that. And it's the best example I know of showing you. I'll tell you with words here, but they tell you with pictures in that video. So the one thing about that video, and it says it in there, but some people miss it, is that the distance between, so what you do is you measure the distance between the eyes of a moose, which in Southeast Alaska is 9 inches. Exactly, Abby's got a good picture. So right here. In interior Alaska, that's about 10 inches, but in Southeast Alaska, that's 9 inches. And then you use that distance and you take it up to the antlers and you see how many of those distances you can make across the width of the bull. And if you can get enough in there to make 50 inches, then it, well, I guess I should say get enough to make, you want to make more than 50 inches, because if you're right on the line, that's definitely not going to be a bull you're going to want to harvest. You want to leave some room in there for error, because I've heard of a lot of guys shooting what they thought were 54-inch bulls and they ended up being 49. So my suggestion is to leave at least 4 inches extra in there, just for some wiggle room. And so since we are having a little bit of discussion about 50 inches, I guess if Carl or Frank have any other comments about that particular topic that they want to add, maybe I'll let them jump in real quick.
Yeah, so up in Haines is where we get the most moose that are over 50, at least in these antler restricted hunts. And when I say the most, I mean in Southeast. Of course, I'm not talking about the interior where they're huge. But even there, the majority of the hunters I find shoot it on brow tines and then are pleasantly surprised to find that it's also over 50. And even in Haines, it's been anywhere from 2 to 8 moose, and 8 was a lot out of 20 plus moose being harvested. And then Frank can elaborate on unit 3, but my understanding is they're lucky if there's 1 moose out of 100, and probably you do not want to be shooting for over 50 inches if you're in unit 3. Does that sound right, Frank?
Yeah, no, that's correct. We rarely get a bull that exceeds 50-inch spread, and probably less than 1 a year.
Yeah, and then Gustavus, the most we might get is like 2. Every once, some years we don't get any, but it's usually like 1 or 2 50-inch bulls in a year. So, okay, I'll continue on. And thanks for that question on that. And so now I'm going to go through some different pictures and tell you why a bull is legal or is not legal to harvest. And so I'll let you guys kind of look at it for a second, and then I'll drop down a little text that will tell you, and I can read through that. And if we go through some of these and you guys want to talk about them later, we can jump back and look at individuals. But I think most of these you guys will think, at least in this portion, you guys will probably think they're pretty straightforward. So yep, this bull would be legal. It has 2 undamaged, unbroken, and unaltered points on the right, making the right antler a fork. And this bull here has a spike on the right antler and a broken spike on the left antler. If both antlers were broken, this would not be a legal bull in RM038, but because it has the one spike, it is a legal bull in RM038, and it would have been legal in the other two hunts, just based on that spike as is. And so, yep, this bull here is also legal. A bull moose with only 2 tines on at least one antler is a fork. And so this bull is legal on both sides. And this bull also is legal. So on the right-hand side, a bull with only 2 tines on at least one antler is a fork, like on the right-hand antler of this bull. And this bull is also legal. It has 2 undamaged, unbroken, and unaltered points on the left, making the left antler a fork. So I know Stephanie looked at that one upper point on the end of that to see if it was 1 inch long and as long as it is wide, and it wasn't. So that didn't turn out to be a point. So like I said, this is a fork. This bull is also legal. It has 3 brow tines on the right antler, making it legal. And this bull has 3 tines on the right antler as well, making that one legal. And this bull has a greater than 50-inch antler spread, which is what made it legal. So you can see that looks like a pretty monstrous bull though, and it only turned out to be 51 3/16. So it was pretty close. And so now I want to kind of go over some antler configurations to avoid. And so this bull isn't legal. It has 1 brow tine on each of the antlers and 3 more points on each of the antlers. So it doesn't meet the spike, the fork, or any of the other configurations that would have been legal. And this one also isn't legal because it's a 3-point 3x3. This also isn't legal because it's a 3-point moose. And this one I think is pretty interesting because I feel like if you didn't watch this moose for a pretty good long time, you might either think it was a spike or a fork because of the weird configuration of the antlers there. So Jeff, you're asking if the presentation will be available later. And yeah, Abby's recording it, so it will be available. And so this moose also isn't legal. You wouldn't want to take a chance that the 2 points on the left antler are less than 1 inch long. And I think one of them actually is more than 1 inch long. So it would be a point that would be counted it, making 3 points on that side. So this antler configuration is legal in RMO 38 because it is a 2x2. Otherwise, it's not legal in the other 2 hunt areas. And here's an interesting antler that could confuse some people. And so you can see this drop tine that comes down. And so this isn't one of the brow palms. This is a mid-bay tine, and so it wouldn't be considered a third point. The whole animal itself is legal because of the other antler, not the one circled in red, but I just want to point out that one tine there and how it might confuse people and that it is not a legal brow tine. So as I said, it is legal because of the other antler. The right antler has 3 brow tines. The left antler has 2 brow tines and a mid-bay tine that drops down. And so this bull is not legal. It's probably not a 2x2 on the right antler. That tine's probably too small to be a point there. So that's probably a 1 and then probably 2 on the other. But it wouldn't be a 2x2 to be legal in RMO 38. And then it also doesn't meet the characteristics for the other 2 hunts as well. And this bull also is not legal. It doesn't fit any of the criteria to be a legal bull in any of the hunt units. The brow palms are 2x1 and doesn't meet 50 inches. So in TMO 59 and RMO 49, this bull would not be legal. It's 46 1/4, so it's not 50 inches. It is a 2x2, so in RMO 38, it would be legal, but in the other 2 hunts, it is not. Guys, look at this one for a second. So this bull would not be legal except in RMO 38. It has 2x2 brow tines. On the left antler, it has a double mid-bay tine, and so that would not count as a brow tine. And so it wouldn't be legal in the other 2 hunts. It would only be legal in RMO 38. So that's what I have for pictures. We'll go through the rest of the presentation. If you guys have questions about particular pictures, we can go back to those at the end. So here are some additional resources for you guys. Like I say, I encourage everybody, even if they've seen it before, to watch Is This Moose Legal video, and that can be found on our website, and the address is right there. If you aren't quick with writing with a pen, I suggest you get your phone out and just take a quick picture of this slide, and you'll have that address there available if you guys need it again in the future. Yeah, as I said, we'll go through the pictures probably at the end, and we can go over any of those pictures again, and I can explain details of those. For the bears, Abby and I did a presentation recently about bear safety while you're hunting. And so if you wanted to see that, it's a very similar flow of the presentation to what we have here. But you can look at that, and it talks about, it's basically the bear safety video that we give to all the folks we give bear safety to, with the twist that it's set up for hunters. So it's really good for folks that are getting ready to go out and hunt. As many of you probably know, this has been an exceptional bear year, both in Haines and in Juneau. And it sounds like things are getting busier farther south. And so I think that if you guys are out hunting this year, you should be extra vigilant about bears as you're hunting this year. So for example, if you're getting ready to put your meat up, probably the safest way to do that is to put an electric fence around it. You know, if you have a bunch of guys in camp, you can all go in on an electric fence, and that would be the safest thing to do. If you are going to hang your meat this year, I would suggest that you hang it more carefully than you ever have hung it before. There are a lot of bears out this year, and if they smell meat hanging, I'm sure it's going to attract them. So I'm just throwing that word of caution out there before the season, because we know it's going to be a bit, well, it is a busy bear year throughout Southeast Alaska. So a few hunter responsibilities. You need to check in at Alaska Department of Fish and Game within 3 days in Haines, or within 5 days of harvesting a moose in the RMO 3.8 and the RMO 4.9 hunts. So 3 days in Haines and 5 days at the other two. And when you do that, you need to present your antlers for measurement. You need to have your jaw to turn in, as well as your hunt report. Also remember, when you're out there hunting, that you need to get permission from landowners if it's not public land to hunt on that land. And if you do have a contact in the field with troopers, this doesn't necessarily count as a check-in. You still need to report that information to Fish and Game. And if you do end up harvesting a non-legal, sublegal moose, you should report it immediately to Fish and Game and or the troopers. And if you do it as quick as possible, we'll be able to provide that meat to the community or a charity. And so that way the meat doesn't go to waste and it goes to a good use. Also, you need to bring your antlers out with the last load of meat and not before, and that's a regulation you need to follow. It is illegal to use wireless communication to aid in the taking of big game. And then it's also illegal to use an electronic moose call. Throughout the region, it's illegal to alter antlers prior to sealing. And proxy hunters and beneficiaries must destroy all the antlers after the Department of Fish and Game is able to measure them. Also, proxy hunters must deliver all salvageable meat to the beneficiary as well. And I'm going to get to that question about wrangle here in a minute. Yeah, I think right here. So for the different check stations in RMO38, like I said, you need to report within 5 days. In Wrangell, you can report at the U.S. Forest Service office by appointment. So you can give them a call Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30, and there's the phone number. In RMO38, if you're hunting around Cake, you can check in your moose at the SOS Value Mart. And then in Petersburg or Ketchikan, you can report to the Fish and Game office during our regular Fish and Game office hours, Monday through Friday. This is another slide that has a lot of valuable information on it. And so if you have your phone and you think you might need this information, you might just take a quick picture of it. In the Gustavus hunt, RMO49, you need to report that you harvested a moose within 24 hours, but then you have 5 days to turn in your actual hunt report with your jaw. To report that you got a moose, you can call the Gustavus Moose Hotline, and that's 1-888-956-6673. And then at TMO59, you need to report within 3 days, and you can do that at the Fish and Game office there in Haines, and that's Monday through Friday between 8 and 4:30. And then sometimes on Saturday and Sunday, it just depends on if someone is available to check in a moose at that time. If the office is unmanned, you can leave a message at the phone number here, 766-2830, and someone will get back to you about checking in the moose. So. Also, check station personnel will do their best to make a determination about whether the moose is legal or not. If it's questionable, the person at the check station will try to determines if it's not legal or it's questionable based on the antler configuration, but basically, to make a final determination, we confer with the troopers and other biologists throughout the region, so it's not just one person that makes that determination. For example, like Carl will send me pictures from Haines. Sometimes we send them down to Frank, and we get everybody's opinion on questionable animals, whether they're legal or not. And then the trooper has the final say on the legality of that in the end. And he works with all of us to try to make that determination. If a moose isn't legal, it'll be left at the Fish and Game office if you're at a Fish and Game office. Otherwise, in some situations like in Gustavus, we'll sometimes ask people to drop it off at a charity where they can take care of it. I've seen a few questions about EOs. And so I can tell you about EOs in Gustavus, and maybe I'll let Carl and Frank talk a little bit about how they EO things. But in Gustavus, we have the Moose Hotline. And everyone's checking the Moose Hotline every day to see if we've met the harvest quota yet. And if I do EO it, they will know by checking the Moose Hotline in the morning whether it's been EO'd or not. So yeah, and Frank, how do you let folks know about EOs in your area?
Yeah, we traditionally haven't issued EOs with RM038. We don't have a quota, so to speak. It did, I think, once closed by EO several years ago, but I don't anticipate issuing any emergency orders.
Yeah, and for Hanes, typically our guideline harvest level is 20 to 25. I've been mostly letting it go to 25, and some of that depends on how close it is till the end of the season. And we haven't had to close it in 2 years, but when we do, I ride around and put flyers on all the vehicles up in the grocery stores and things like that. And most folks know to, tune into KTOO, the radio station announces them. And if I close it, it's at least 24 hours notice. And typically, I find folks can spread the word pretty quickly in Haines between camps and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. And so we kind of talked about harvest quota for Frank's area, which is pretty high. He doesn't necessarily have one. I think last year, like you said, they got over 140 moose. Carl's area is around 20 to 25 moose. And Gustavus this year is going to be 8 moose. The population had dropped a little bit when I counted them last winter, and so it seems like the right level of harvest should be 8 moose this year. So I also wanted to put that information out there for folks. Other, just going through the slides some more, other hunter responsibilities. As I mentioned, we encourage all of you to watch Is This Moose Legal video. It's extremely helpful and goes over more antler configurations, as well as a great demonstration of how to determine a 50-inch bull based on the distance between the eyes. As we've mentioned, antlers must be retained until Fish and Game or a wildlife trooper verifies the configuration and measurement. And then if you didn't hunt or you're unsuccessful, you're still required to report on these hunts. If you don't do that, there's legal consequences. For one, you won't be able to have a registration permit next year, and there could be a fine for ending up on the failure to report list. And if you harvest a non-legal moose, we encourage you to bring it in and we'll provide it to charity, and that meat won't go to waste and it goes to a good cause and doesn't, as I say, it doesn't get wasted. So our take-home messages, we really encourage folks to play it safe. If you think it's close to 50 inches but not sure, we suggest you don't shoot those animals. It's one of the most common mistakes made in these hunts. And so unless you're absolutely certain it's a legal moose, we suggest that you don't harvest those animals that are on the line. And just reiterating again, if you think it looks like a maybe, we really suggest that you pass on those. But we do hope you all have a fantastic hunting season, and all 4 of us are happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. And if you have questions about specific moose, and actually I remember there was some questions about that last picture with the mid-bay tines, the double tines. I'll just bounce back to that and answer that question to start with. So let me find that. And so how do I explain this? The bay itself is actually filled by the double mid-bay tine on the left side, and so that's why it doesn't look like a big bay, because it's filled by the mid-bay tine itself and cuts it in half. But the way you can tell that it's a mid-bay tine is that the antlers don't, or the points don't project forward like they do on the brow palm, the 2 brow palm tines. So that's how I would explain that. And we're open to other questions.
Yeah, I see there's one about TMO 59, and thank you for that question. So we've been doing a moose research study in the area, and the weather was difficult for flying surveys last year. So getting a bull-cow ratio for the whole valley is not something that I was able to do, but I did fly in December and then again in March. And in March, was able to fly the entire valley. And because of the marked animals that we have, we think there's roughly about 400 moose in the valley, which is pretty good. I think our objective for post-harvest population is at least 200. So quite a few moose out there. I would have liked to have been able to see the entire valley back in when the antlers were still on the bulls, but the weather just wasn't cooperating. I went up once in December and got about half the valley done, and then fog kind of aced me out, so I couldn't quite get there. Other than that, I think things are looking pretty good. The captured animals we have, the body fat's been a little bit lower than some other areas, but the calf survival is very similar to Gustavus and Berners Bay, which is the other areas where we have marked animals.
Yeah, Kimberly, that's great that you've seen a couple of the collared cows. If you do have information on those, the locations, we always do like to hear reports of that, and you can stop by the Fish and Game office or give us a call down here in Douglas when you see those and tell us where they're at.
Yeah, and you were asking how many we collared. I think we collared 16 last fall. I'm trying to remember, but it's total of 38 or 39. Actually two that were collared were animals that had been caught by trappers in snares, and both of those didn't survive. And then we only had one animal die over the winter. That's something I should have mentioned earlier when you were talking about the health of the herd. Despite that fact that Haines got really slammed with snow late, I think the fact that it came late maybe and didn't last all winter long was helpful, because only losing one adult cow is pretty good survival for the area.
And I did mention a little bit about the health of the Gustavus herd. When I did the count, I counted 189 moose, I think, which is a little lower than we usually like. We usually like to have it around 225 to 300. And so that population is down a little bit. And so that's why I took a conservative number on the allowable bulls to hunt this year. But we'll see. Hopefully we'll have a good winter this year, and the herd will perk up a little bit, and we'll get back to normal in a few years. So. Any other questions out there?
While we're waiting for questions, I'll just echo what Roy said earlier. If you live in Haines and you're going to hang moose in your garage or shed or something, please give very serious thought to putting an electric fence up. It's just, we're working hard with the other agencies, dealing with a lot of issues with bears causing property damage, and I'd hate to have somebody's shed get ripped open and their moose get drug off into the woods.
Yes, I can answer that question. We had just another question about whether or not this presentation is being recorded, and it is. And what I will do is, once we're finished tonight, I will get this all buttoned up and put it on a YouTube link that I can share to anyone who wants to email me. Anyone who joined tonight does have my email because you're all pre-registered. So if you would like this presentation, the recording of it, or rather the link to the recording, please do send me an email and I'm happy to share it with you. It should be available by the end of the week. So thank you.
I will be in Haines. I'm going to come up on the 15th, and I'll be there for quite a bit of the season. Yeah, I said K2, didn't I? I meant KHNS. I apologize. We won't announce it on K2 because you guys probably won't hear it. Thanks for the correction.
Well, we do want to respect everyone's time. We're right at 7 o'clock on the nose. I think that's about all we had for the presentation. Is that correct, gentlemen?
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
So like I said, yeah, do let me know if you'd like a link to this presentation. Happy to send it. Really appreciate all of you joining and tuning in tonight. Yeah, I hope everyone was cozy at home and have a wonderful hunt out there. Good luck to you all. And yeah, be safe.